call the meeting to order. First off, I need approval of the agenda.
Moved.
Joe with the motion.
Second.
Claire with the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 7-0. Welcome all of our visitors. I hope you stay for the entire meeting. Okay, consent items.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we poll item 2.33, 2.34, and 2.35 for discussion.
So is that a motion?
Yes.
So we have a motion to pull those three.
Second.
Joe with the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 7-0. So the remaining, I need a motion for approval of those.
I move we approve the consent agenda minus 2324 and 234, 233, and 235.
All right.
Second.
Claire with the motion, Joe with the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 7-0. Eric, you're up.
All right, thank you. Yes, wanted to quickly just pull these out. Just want to make sure we recognize these a little bit separately from the rest. First off, as it pertains to these three positions that are specific to high school assistant coaching jobs, want to just call out that the reason I had them pulled was not a reflection on the individuals themselves. This is more the position itself. We're excited about all three of these folks and look forward to having them as part of our district in these supplemental roles. Wanted to just call out and just highlight that these positions are being funded through donations, through private donations, and they are not roles that we have as a board negotiated or agreed to as full-time additions to our supplemental schedule. So this will be sort of a one-time for each of these, and what I would encourage this board to do is look strongly at sort of what policies we need around handling this type of situation in the future to make sure that we have things covered and there's transparency around what roles are out there and how they're being funded. So just want to provide some clarity as well as make sure it's noted that that's what these specific roles entail. So
Yeah, thank you for pulling them, and I think what I would, I guess, echo or add to that is that I think we've gone down a path with these particular roles that I think, I think there's no doubt that they'll be valuable additions to the team, not just because of the personnel that they are, but also I think it's obviously going to be beneficial to those individual sports programs to have those coaches in place. But I look at acting on this tonight, for me at least, as this would be a standalone situation, that I wouldn't view this as something that sets any sort of precedent until I see something in place that we establish as a policy. So I think that there's just lots of gray areas and sticky situations that could arise in the long term. I think as long as this is isolated for the time being, I'm comfortable with it, but I definitely think that, again, as you said, the board should consider. I would like a policy proposed to the board, and obviously we can have some input if desired as to who's involved there, but I would look to administration to bring something forth prior to anything like that kind of coming back before us.
I would concur also. These are, I think I'm on, some concerns and just around how clear, transparency, communication, things like that. So I'm excited to maybe start delving into a little bit of policy of, kind of make this agreed with a one-off kind of situation. Just make sure we've got something that's consistent and that is consistent long-term and sustainable long-term.
So I guess what I'm hearing is a recommendation that we move forward with some planning in the future around this sort of thing, but also fundraisers in general.
Agreed. Yes.
So if you
Yeah, I think that'd be great. What we can plan on is September under my report. What I'll try and do between now and then is kind of compile what of our known fundraisers. I know we've all had students in our district and give willingly, but we also know there comes a point, and we don't want to exhaust our community
Right.
or our people. So I'll try and compile kind of a list of the known fundraisers. I appreciate the time to try and do that, and then as well think of kind of the long-term implications, because whether that be from activities to athletics, we do a lot of fundraising. So I think our coaches, admin, everybody would welcome some clear guidance from the board as we move forward, potentially into next year. I think that can only be more helpful. So
I appreciate that you've talked about expanding it beyond just these fundraisers for these specific positions, but yeah,
Yeah.
looking at all.
Right.
That's what I was gonna mention.
I
Thank you.
think you've all said it, it's not a people, it's a practice. And so we can then look at how we address that going forward, and I'll try and get that information and then look forward to discussions throughout the next course of the year, if that works.
And I would certainly encourage, I think everything that is donation, and this is like the opposite of a conflict of interest because I'm trying to put more work on somebody, but I think that the foundation, I think enough of the fundraising goes through that already that it'd be nice to have kind of a central repository of that information. And certainly if there's a way for that organization to be involved is probably beneficial in terms of helping to manage that.
Agreed.
Very good. Would you want to make a motion on those
I
three?
will. I'm trying to think if we should make specific wording to indicate it's for the purposes it's funded through donations. I think that will be my motion. I move we accept these three roles funded via donations for these one-year positions.
I'll second that.
So Eric with the motion, Joe with the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Was she able to get that?
She will, just
Get caught up there. All right. For 1 year.
So it was Eric and Joe. And it was 7-0.
This is good training, especially, she's our diligent expert, so this is great.
All right, so we're going to move to District Spotlight. We're going to hear about some trap shooting.
Officer Lewis brought some members of the team, so we'll turn it, I said Officer Lewis brought some members of the team, so we'll turn it over to him.
You guys are really brave putting that food out there before they left. I know we're limited on time, but I want to just do a real brief before they talk about all the awards and accolades that all of these guys have received. I'm going to let them, I think it's only fair that they come up and talk about that. But before I go, I do have three guys that I need to thank, which is Ross Stottleman, Pat Jankowski, and Larry Lindsay, who is here, who volunteer a lot of time, a lot of their evenings, weekends, to come out and assist and help coach. I know they probably won't talk about it, but this team's been a little over 8 years since it started. And since then, the league has grown significantly. There's approximately 36 states that compete in this league, and Kansas alone has roughly 1,300 kids. And of those 1,300, obviously our kids compete. It's not based on school size. It's actually based on a team size. So we've competed against teams as small as Minneapolis, Santana, Dodge City, Fort Riley. So it's a lot of good competition that these kids see, and so far we've been extremely lucky, and our kids have done very well. So with that, I'm going to let them come up here and talk about some of the awards that they have received this season.
My name is Kent Lindsay. I shoot trap. All of these guys shoot trap with me, among I believe 25 other shooters with the 4 coaches. Trap is the safest sport in Kansas, and it's also the fastest growing, as Caleb mentioned, with 35,000 shooters in the nation and 10,800 coaches. I mean, that's not as big as some sports, but it's growing pretty rapidly. Nationals, the top 1,300 in the country, or the top 2% of shooters in the nation, go to nationals. You get invited. Of the top 1,300, Eudora sent 6 people. Number 1 was Ethan Fearborn, who placed number 1 in Kansas with an average of 24.8 clays out of 25. Cade Lindsay placed number 6 in Kansas with an average of 24.4 out of 25 clays and second in conference. I myself placed number 35 in Kansas with an average of 23.9 out of 25 and fourth in conference. Lane Fugit placed number 59 in Kansas with an average of 23.5, and he placed fifth in conference. Evie Hayes placed 7th in conference with an average of 23.1. And in our conference, there's 6 teams in our conference. We placed first, and it kind of wasn't close at all. We shot really well. We also have like a great team. Like, it's gonna keep getting better, but our team right now is pretty solid. It's really good. We just need to keep practicing. So
conference? Is it the same league that?
Yeah,
Okay.
It changes every season. It depends on. So it's split up in two conferences. It's Conference A or 1A and then 2.
Yeah.
The ones are the smaller schools, a lot of the Western Kansas schools, and then most of all of us up here in Eastern Kansas are Conference 2. So.
Again, it's a great opportunity for our students, and you think about another level of engagement. Many of them are involved in other activities, and
Yes.
so they're coming straight from those to get their shots in. And I know it takes a tremendous amount of time, and not only that, donations, because they're running through shells, they have travel. So we're very fortunate for that team, and it's great to hear 8 years because, again, I think it's just a great opportunity for our kids, and they obviously have done very well with it. So thank you.
Another great thing about this sport is we've got a lot of kids that don't do any other sports. This is their only opportunity, and now that it's a lettering sport, so this is their only opportunity to earn that high school letter. So I'd say good fourth of our team to third does not compete in any other sport. So this is good for them.
But Officer Lewis still has the same requirements for grades, all those pieces, so it's still treated just like any other activity
Still
as far as
grades.
those
Which
expectations.
Mine's a lot stricter. I don't allow any Fs, and they all know that. They get checked on Monday. They still take the drug test, and I'm pretty strict on them with that. So that's. I know the ladies don't want to talk back there, but one thing that they did miss is both of our ladies placed in top 10 in conference, correct? Somebody was number 1, I believe. Yeah, Miss Evie Hayes. She didn't want to be up here in the spotlight, but I think they need to be recognized for that as well. So, any
Guys, did you go to nationals, or where is nationals?
nationals is always unfortunately in Mason, Michigan, which is southeast of Lansing.
Okay.
Myself and our other coaches and some other coaches that are farther away. There's a range outside of Sparta, or in Sparta, Illinois, which is outside of St. Louis, and we all want to push for that. It'd save our kids 2 days of travel and a lot of money. But the league started up north, and obviously they pushed to keep it up there. So
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
all right, thank you guys. very much.
Congratulations. Yeah, great job. Who was joking? All right, so that takes us to administrative reports.
Yes, we're going to have our Human Resources Director, Amanda, come visit with us a little bit and talk about human resources.
Yes, good evening. I will tell you, I have to start out saying it has been an exciting couple of weeks welcoming our new staff and convocation, benefit fair, all the things. And today, of course, we welcome students. So that's the most exciting. So it has been really fun. I've got to give a shout out to the people that helped make all this effort and come together. Heather, Shannon with the benefits fair, all of that. It was a lot of fun the last couple weeks. So the thing I'm mainly going to talk to you guys a little bit about is what you're going to be voting on tonight is the HR strategic plan, and kind of focus on how that evolved, what we did for feedback, and that kind of stuff. You know, we have our strategic plan as our guide for our district, and we wanted something that all staff could feel like they could model in their day-to-day interactions. And that's kind of where you come up with the HR strategic plan, which models our district strategic plan. You think about workplace civility. You connect that with the culture of belonging in our strategic plan. Leadership development, instructional excellence is how it connects with that. Workplace stability, future prepared, and how that connects in all those ways as something our staff can lean towards to help fulfill our promise, and something that guides them as they go through that for our students. So we started planning this, and we started doing feedback sessions In January, did about a total of 12 of them to hit all staff members, classified teachers, all of the above. We worked with that. So we asked them some questions about, like, what does workplace civility look like for you? And how do you model that in your day-to-day interactions? And some of the feedback that we gotten with those is like strengthen communication and transparency. They need clear, evident way guidance in order to fulfill those promises and increase two-way communication. A way to build trust is that clear and concise communication, and it leads to performance. Obviously, if you're communicating back and forth, you have good performance, and people trust and build that trust on you. Expectations, we talked about clear expectations of their work and job duties. And then offer professional development to build skills and respectful conversations, listening, feedback, and civil discourse in everyday interactions were kind of the focus on what we gathered there. And staff recognition was also a big one, making sure we're recognizing staff in different ways and all of that. So the next, we talked about leadership development and what does that look like for every staff member. I mean, you think of PD is obviously one way, professional development for leadership development, but how does that look for our classified staff? You know, we heard lots of different things of, Dr. Meckel mentioned this a couple months ago, I want to learn more what to do if I have a child in crisis, if I'm on a bus, if I'm in the kitchen, lunchroom, you know, they may not be fully trained on those types of things. So that's more kind of professional development where they can lead where they're at. And that's kind of what we want for every staff member, is to be able to lead where they are. And increase visibility and awareness with leadership. That was one of the things that was brought back with feedback. So, and communicating those in membership programs, mentorship programs for all staff members. You know, can classified staff also have a mentorship program if there's somebody in those roles that has experience, can they help with that? So, and then we kind of looked at the workplace stability and how to enhance communication and feedback mechanisms within that. Two-way communication was one of the big ones. And aim for competitive benefits and salaries. That was another one that was talked about. So when you look at our measurements and all that, those are items we are taking into consideration with those measurements. And again, improve stability in leadership and decision making. And am I being heard is kind of one of the things that was said. So measuring that. So, you know, we have our promise to our students. We wanted to create kind of a commitment to our staff members as well. Every staff member in Schools, known by name, valued for their strengths, supported in their needs, and empowered to lead from where they are, so that together we can fulfill that promise to our students. This human resource strategic plan annual reviews will help us monitor progress towards these goals and highlights key performance measurements aligned with the results we must achieve to realize our strategic priorities. Each measurement is initially connected to one or more goals of the human resource strategic plan. These measurements can be revised. Again, this is kind of a working document. Over time, our goals may shift. And so the measurements, we may find new and better ways to measure those goals and align with the strategic plan. So it's a 5-year plan in hopes that every staff member can kind of roll into that and we can reach some goals within that 5 years and be there where everybody can feel valued and heard and have a great workplace in order to fulfill our promise for our students. That's one thing where sometimes staff members may say, well, how do I fit into that promise? You know, what can I do for those students? So this kind of guides them to lead them there.
credit really goes to Amanda on this, carrying it over the actual the hump for your guys' consideration. So when we started this in January, those meetings were so important for us to get that feedback, and we met obviously during pay hours, but with time set aside for those individual groups. Amanda and Amy and I were side by side in those. Amanda often taking notes when we couldn't get the slides to work, but she did an outstanding job. And what we love about this, if you can remember history-wise, that productivity was brought up as we talked about those goals. We felt it was so important that it needed to have its own strategic plan when we talk about human resources. And so we love that it mirrors our district strategic plan, and we love that it has, again, those measurable goals, so that when we come back to you annually to talk about this, we can measure ourselves on our progress there. So that's what we think. It's going to be very powerful for our staff, and we learned so much. We also learned how hungry staff was for that opportunity to lead where they're at. You know, and it started by just talking about leading where you're at is just trying to be your best self and be your best employee. And so what supports do you need to do that? How can we best help you grow? So it was really impactful, and certainly enjoyed that process.
Yes, and I do have to give credit to Amy and for building that, and Heather was also highly involved in that process of coming together with the strategic plan and some goals in line with that. So
I was just going to say, when this board had our brainstorming session, had our work session about what was important to us following all of the listening tours, staff recognition, I think, was more important to us than productivity. And I know that's a word you're picking to sort of have an overarching, what is the HR strategic plan about? But I think it's about recognition and empowerment more so than are they doing their job, which is a piece, and yet it's also a little deeper than that, because when our teachers succeed, our students do. I see that reflected in this document. I think all of the goals are right there through this of we're all going to succeed together. Everyone has some work to do to get there, and we're doing it together. Anyway. Just wanted to mention that.
I mean, that's a good point. When staff feel recognized and empowered, I mean, they're all connected. That helps productivity as well. I mean, so yes, you are absolutely correct for recognition and empowerment. And like Dr. Meckrell said, it was eye-opening to see how hungry some of those were. I mean, within certain groups, wanting PD on conflict management and how to walk through those, and it was really good, some of the feedback. So
I love the cohesiveness, but I'd also appreciate how we're focused also on certified staff and just staff where they are and empowering them where they are. I think I appreciate you. I enjoy hearing that, and that's a value, because it does sometimes you're like, well, how can I make a difference right here?
Yeah.
And that we're giving a roadmap to that, or at least a place to ask those questions,
Right.
I think is hugely valuable. So great job. Thank you.
anything else?
Other
That's
questions
all
or anything?
I have, and
Very good.
we're off to a great school year so far.
Thanks, Amanda.
For one day. It's all
Yeah, no kidding. Maybe not some parents. No. All right, superintendent report.
Very good. So I'm going to follow up on the happiness of the first day. It was outstanding, but we don't get to a first day without a lot of work over the summer. So I want to recognize the work of our custodial staff, our grounds and maintenance staff for getting our buildings, and I told the staff in convocation, the best I think they've ever looked. You can see that when you walk through our halls. You can see that when you look at our spaces. So we're very excited about that piece, and a huge shout out to them as well. Last Friday, we were very fortunate to have our final inspection for our transportation, which is critical when you want to transport kids. And so shout out to Michaela and her whole team, because it is a lot of work. If you would have driven by Friday morning or Thursday afternoon, you see the whole fleet lined up in the transportation building, and they have that just seamless down. So huge shout out, because those buses have to be spotless as well as functioning the right way. So wanted to give a huge shout out to the transportation team. And then obviously we are starting school, so we have had teachers back since Monday. And it has been a exciting yet very fun-filled and workable week. And our teachers have been busy preparing. I wanted to give them a huge shout out, because I know come Friday afternoon they'll be just as tired as our students. So yeah. And then you might have noticed the parking lot was a little full tonight, or it might have been rounded up, but we had our Meet the Teacher night last night at EES, which is always exciting to watch 650 kids and families come through that building at one time. And then this afternoon we had our ELC Meet the Teacher night, and that was about 120 families come through, and it was very busy and a lot of excitement. No tears today, but we do anticipate a few on Monday, just from that new setting. So I wanted to give a shout out to our whole district and our team, because there's nothing quite like the start of the school year, and there's nothing quite like the start of the school year tired. So, but we're very excited about that. I did want to discuss the first part of my presentation is on artificial intelligence policy. And again, we're really just at the beginning discussion about this. But if you want to open up to the presentation, the guidelines kind of mirror the presentations. We're not necessarily looking for a policy with this, but I would love to have the board start having some consideration and discussion on what EudoraSchools wants to embrace and both utilize and maybe make some rules around. So if you go to the first page, again, we always start off with our promise, but underneath that, we've got a couple key words that I think are important as we consider this. That'd be equity, privacy, and innovation. And I think you're going to see that reflected in this document. I think it, again, mirrors what we talk about with Future Prepared, because I can tell you AI is not going away. I see it a lot like when the internet, commercial internet first came on. We can either learn how to use it or we can fall behind, but I don't think we're going to be able to ignore it. And so when you go to, again, why does it matter? We know that it's been a rise, but we also know, especially with student privacy, that it also has its own inherent risks. And so when we talk about those legal foundations, and Ron, if you want to go to the third slide over there, we want to make sure that whatever we're doing with AI has legally following FERPA as well as COPA. And you may not necessarily know COPA, but that is the Children's Privacy Protection Act from the federal government. And then obviously what we have with IDA and 504, which would be our special ed arrangements and agreements. So we want to make sure that all those legal foundations are followed when we start talking about AI. I use the term equity and fairness, and the way I see equity when it comes to this is we know all of our students have access to the internet because we've given them a device. But the equity to me is that if I'm in one class and the teacher says, sure, you can use AI, and I'm in another class that says, no, you can't, we've already created some barriers there. And so I'm worried about where we go and having some idea of how that's best used. And best practice is going to be important, because it is a tool out there that, number one, our kids already know about and they're already using. Like anything else, I'd like to teach them how to use it correctly, and also make sure that they understand on the other pieces that there are some biases with AI. It will tell you what you want to hear, and it will continue to tell you what you want to hear. And my fear with students, and I can tell you with my own teenagers, is that they don't have that fully frontal lobe developed enough to go, boy, I wonder if this is true. You know, when they see something on TikTok, they automatically think it's true. Well, if AI tells them something, that doesn't automatically make it true. We as adults kind of have that differentiation that we can say, I don't know that this is accurate. But studies have shown that teenagers and students will believe AI, and so we have to teach them to understand that it is information, but it's just like any information, and if you put in bad things, you're going to get bad things out of it. So
AI is so good at telling you how wonderful you are.
yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Oh, that's a really great response, or that's a
Right.
really great idea.
So what we really hope to come with our oversight piece is that human involvement in the decision making, meaning we want to be, as a district, able to, what tools we're putting in front of our kids, these are the district approved tools. When you're on a district device, this is what you're using, instead of this is what I found out there. The other piece is having AI audits and making sure we're using those pieces, coming back to it, making sure that this still is an appropriate tool for our students to use. And then last but not least is making sure we're not putting something in front of a student that is tracking their data, that is taking those things and utilizing that so that it's a safe piece. And so I think, again, those are considerations that we want to have.
Explain a little more what an AI audit is.
Yeah, so for me, an AI audit would be, are we using the right tools? And we put together a group that goes through the research of that to see is the AI audit what we're using safe? Is it non-biased? Is it from kind of the best thing? And then, yeah, you're auditing the tool. Yeah, you'd want to make sure that what we're putting in front is number one, a appropriate tool. Number two, actually giving us accurate information. I think the tool I see it really having an exponential growth for is when we talk about that curriculum and professional development around that. It is very helpful for teachers to say, hey, I'd like information based on the standards that will help me lesson plan or do this. The problem is if I don't ask for the Kansas standards or if I don't know enough knowledge about them, what I may be teaching may in no way, shape, or form line up with that. Again, it is helpful, but if I don't ask the right things, it's not going to give me the right information. But it's going to look like it came from AI, so it's going to sound really smart and really intelligent, and I should use it. So again, talking about preparing our students for that literacy, they already have exposure to it. How are we helping prepare them through that literacy, and then empowering our staff with professional development around it? We dabbled in this about a year or two ago. It was both shocking and it kind of exciting to hear that we had staff that were using it already, and we also had staff like, what is that? That was a little shocking that they hadn't heard of AI and one of those pieces. And I think it's important to remember too, AI is a lot like low fat. We remember low fat, everything, they'll slap AI on everything. And so we want to make sure the tools that we're using is good. There are a lot of products right now. We actually are piloting something for our staff that's called Magic School. And essentially what it is it's a teacher helped resource that has AI on the back of it. So if I say I want this, I click that button and it will provide that for me. It's been very popular with some of our teachers. Again, not district-wide, but we have some teachers that are using it that have found it very functional. But we have some teachers that would not know what that is. Again, it's basically using a chat GPT. It's just putting a nice, easy cover to understand on the front of it. And so I think that staff development, I think that we're going to have some staff hungry for that. But we also know we have a strategic plan, and so we don't want to overload and say, well, this and the strategic plan, but I think this is going to be an important part of our future. And so I want that to be consideration. And then obviously when we talk about data governance, on the right one is, are we using things? Right now we currently don't have any large long-term contracts. Again, we're piloting for free those pieces, but what do we have with privacy, and then what are their deletion policies? The scary thing for Kansas, and the thing we hear both from legal and from KSD is the things that most people are using are public-facing AI. Nobody that I know has their own internal AI, and so if I put a record on there, now that data can be scraped from anywhere. And so I want to make sure that we don't have somebody that says, here's some scores that also has some student information, and analyze that in all very, very thoughtful, kind ways to do that, thinking that will make it better, but then putting private information out there. And once it's out there, it's like the internet, you can't get it back. So again, I think we're just at the first initial steps of this, but I think in the end, I think that it's going to be important to have, we talk about community engagement with advisory committee, and I'd like a board member or two to sit on that as we get going to help shepherd that and then bring those back to you. And then obviously stakeholder feedback from parents, because we're going to have some in our community that say, well, I use AI in my job every day. And we're going to have some in our community that say, well, our kids shouldn't even be on computers. And the truth is somewhere in between. So I want that piece of it. So really what's next for you as a board is we'll start talking next month into October about forming a committee and then talking about what initial tools do we want to pilot wholeheartedly. And then we'll try and discuss a timeline rollout. But I thought it'd be good to have that in front of you tonight and see if questions you have about that as a board.
Changing. Every day seems like there's something new in regards to it, and I've seen some new, at the collegiate level, some safeguards they're putting around ways for students to not be able to cheat with AI as much. So I think the more we're at least monitoring and trying to get ahead of it. I don't think we'll ever get ahead of it, but just be,
Right.
I think this is a really good first steps.
Actually, kind of what I was curious about is obviously these are guidelines, but they're not really getting into that academic level of what is and is not permissible. Do we have at the high school in particular, but anywhere there's no, I didn't think so, is that
There's some
obviously that might-
plagiarism policy,
right?
but
that would
again, there's some argument, again, I don't know that I'd want to ever litigate it to the federal courts that is using AI plagiarism. You know, I mean, it's not your original thought, but it's also not stealing someone else's besides AI's thought. So I want us to kind of rally around that, because to me, I think it's more about the questions that we're asking students to answer instead of the summarization of, the example I always use is the red fern grows. If you ask a student to summarize that, 30 years ago, they might have pulled out a Cliff's Notes book, a yellow book, or they might, and 20 years ago when I was in school, they might have just Googled it and done that. Now AI will do it in seconds. None of it is a student's original thought, but I think if you ask students about how this makes them feel or how they see themselves in that story, you're going to get a more an answer that's going to be more genuine and from the heart, and very easily to tell that maybe Stu Meckel might have used AI for this instead of his original thoughts. So I think we can get ahead of it at least by asking some different questions and also making sure that we are covered when it comes to that plagiarism, because it's ever changing.
Yeah, I guess, and maybe it emanates from this, but I would definitely like to see the development there of some guidelines, principles as to how we're doing that. And I know some of the teachers, I know there's whatever the reverse chat GPT to
Say the
basically decode,
irony,
is this
yeah.
from AI, and but I don't know that there's any uniformity, and there, of course, we don't need uniformity across every class and every instructor, but I think there are things that can go beyond plagiarism that are original thoughts, is what you're requesting, and so I think there's probably some easy ways to, within a class, or two, to do that. Just out of curiosity, did these guidelines come from ChatGPT?
But they were helped formed as a thought partner with ChatGPT. Again, I've got a great book that I would share with you, but the irony of the plagiarism checkers is they use AI to check itself. And so, again, I don't know that we have a certified AI checker, and I would hate to have a parent say, well, you gave my student a failing grade, how do you know the viability of the AI you used to check it? Well, I just found it online. Again, that puts us in a precarious situation of, you can't use AI, but I'm going to use AI to check you. And so I want to develop a good discussion, board understanding, built on community feedback and what we hope to see going in the future, without trying to limit that innovation by saying a policy of blank. You know, and I think that's the best practices, that we kind of develop some guidelines, you as a board, that then we can work from. So
I was going to highlight you talking about changing the questions that we're asking. That's a thing that the curriculum committee and Heather Hunley has been challenging our teachers to do, with like taking a look at their instructional practices in their classrooms and real-time assessing knowledge. There's no computers open at that moment, and it's just a conversation, like check-ins, and in the moment, tell me the answer to this question, that I think will help with this. It's already a conversation that she's having with all of our instructors. And yeah, I think this is a proactive move to try to figure out how Eudora feels about it and what our teachers feel about it and our community. I appreciate that this is let's have a committee, let's ask our community also.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, I mean, and obviously the cell phone policy will help, but still, anytime they have their device open, you take a math equation right off of a test, you plug it in, you have your answer. So it's all right there for them. We're gonna have to put some really work around that, and again, that's gonna move quicker than we can move, how all that goes. But I can tell you right now, if we want them prepared leaving high school, they need to know how to use it properly, and that is the expectation going into the world today. The folks on my team and in my company, it is an expectation that part of their day is spent using those tools to help make their job easier so that they can be more productive during the day. So we absolutely owe it to our kids to get them prepared for that, but we certainly need to give them some guardrails and help them learn the proper way to use it.
I would agree with that. And again, I think back to we all are of an age of the internet coming on and what that looks like. And we're not going to stop this wave of change. I think we can best prepare our students for it. And I totally agree with the idea that it's going to be a tool that's used. And so how do we help them understand and use it correctly? So timeline for this, I would love to have something as we roll into next year that has been fully put together with community input with the committee, and then have that committee bring recommendations as we have in the past to the board, again, just as to consider for adoption. So it will not be the last time we hear about it, but thought we'd start talking about it tonight. So.
Next up is discussion about the board self-evaluation. And I just want to share with you a concept or an idea. Many of you know that I have my own consulting business, and I've been working with school districts and school boards across the country, or this Kansas. And board health is kind of a concern of mine. Not here, make that clear. But I've seen some really tough boards, toxic, and how that's impacting districts, how that's impacting relationships with superintendents, even with students. And so just been trying to figure that out and thinking about what I've been offering. And recently I have created kind of a partnership with a guy who has an organization called Trust Centric, who has some really interesting diagnostic tools to help understand trust within an organization. In fact, he's already met with the staff here and did some work. But anyway, in conversation, I thought there needs to be a diagnostic tool that boards can use to just evaluate the health of the board and where the gaps might be, and then maybe try to figure out what the interventions would be to do that. So I thought, it just really works well. We just went through kind of a board eval. So I'm going to share with you briefly a concept. It's in the process of being trademarked, and it's proprietary information, so I can't really just lay it all out for you. But essentially, it's three tools to measure the character of the individuals on the board and the character of the board. A tool that measures the contribution that each member has towards the organization itself, and then a tool that looks at 7 layers of trust, really deep dive into 7 different layers of trust. So we've created this tool. I have met with 4 superintendents. I've met with 2 business owners. I've met with an individual that works with nonprofit boards. I've met with board members from other districts. I even had a meeting with Dr. Jordan at KSB 2 days ago. Everybody feels like this is a good tool, but what we need is we need to do a pilot, because it all looks good on paper, right? And well, I'm offering to use our board as a pilot. It's for free. There would be no cost whatsoever, but it would involve taking 3 assessments. Each one of them takes 10 minutes, so it's not a huge amount of time. Stu's seen some of this already. And myself and this other individual that owns Trust Centric would come in and do a workshop with us. The idea would be to get feedback from you. I'm not worried about the health of this board, because I think this board is extremely healthy compared to lots of boards that I've seen or horror stories that I've heard. But at the same time, you can't fix what you don't see, and that's part of what this is about, is just uncovering that. So having
Seen it, what I would suggest, if the board's willing, and again, not necessarily a vote per se, what we know with our discussion from Dr. Hart and that work from KASB is we've got feedback from that, but what we don't have is the next step. And so that's what I love about this piece, is that it gets some tools for that. We have some suggested next steps in our guidebook, but what I love is it truly says, okay, here's something that might be advantageous to help. This might help work on and address this issue. So having looked at it, again, it is a technical tool, but I think it will help then start another step in the conversation, having looked at it. And so especially I love the 7-layer, the trust side of it. Our admin team has been through several trainings. We started, I think in June for our retreat, and then came back in August. And it's been very helpful when we talk about how we can take the next steps. Again, not that we're lacking trust or we have amazing trust. It's about here's some things we can do proactive. So I think that's what will help with the board. And so that being said, I'd love to try and schedule a work session. And so look for a doodle poll to come out. And again, you don't want to do it in a meeting because the actual presentation with Mark and the individual will take more than you'd want to tack onto a meeting. But between now and probably October to have kind of a work session. So look for a doodle poll for maybe a work night on that. And then if you have questions about this and you want to visit more with Mark about it, just reach out because he is the resident expert, I would say. So if you have questions, you can reach out to him.
Use that term loosely. So yeah, if there's interest, I'd love to be able to get your thoughts and input. So, all right, board reports. Start off with the foundation.
Quite a bit tonight. Sorry, I'll go quick. Let's see. The first thing we wanted to announce, we had 4 high school interns over the summer. They worked to bring back the EHS Career Connect program with lunch and learn panels and site visits. Those students, they received high school credit for their internship. And then on Monday night, we hosted the school supply shopping event, which was a kind of a new, well, it was a new format this year, which I need to give a shout out to Monica Dittmer for, she's our EudoraSchools Foundation Volunteer and Program Coordinator. She did a lot of the organizing, the event, and actually for the new format of it. She did a lot of work with it. We had over 300 people attend. With that was 150 students plus 150 family members. They received backpacks and supplies. They were offered free haircuts by appointment. They had immunizations, vision screenings, food service applications, and a lot of other community resources available to them. They received clothing. They had new shoes that were donated by the alumni, and they had a room full of hygiene products they got to shop with. Also, that evening they had pancake and sausage dinner. So, with all that and all the people involved in it, we want to give a shout out to the administrative staff for volunteering for the event, all of the incredible support from the community, the businesses, the churches, and the alumni. So just thank you for all involved.
It was an amazing night. And again, there was a ton of supplies that had been donated from our community. And I loved it because it felt like shopping. And then obviously the smell of pancakes and sausage in the background from the church was amazing. So it was a great night, and the families were super appreciative, and it really was. They could get what they needed. And shout out to Monica for organizing it and Shanda for putting it all together, because it was, I think we leveled up on what we had done in the past, and I don't know what they'll do next year to top it, but it was outstanding. So.
And a chance to see their offices and workspace, you should go look. I visited it. They have quite the space. All right, interlocal.
Tuesday we met for the month. Tuesday was also the staff work session. All the interlocal staff got together that day. New staff, old staff, everyone. So they met in Baldwin. Let's see, what else did we work on that night? The paras put in a parameter for a clock in, clock out parameter. So it allows them for a 7.5 day. So that will kind of help with some budget things that we're working with and some other items. but they're working on that. All the professional development schedule with certified and classified staff was put out, so I think this is going to be the first year where the interlocal will actually have days where they can go in and, as a group, do staff development instead of within district. They'll actually go together. We did talk about budget. One of the budget items is that we're having a consultant come in from Greenbush monthly to review and consult with the budget to help with that. Went over some health insurance, the interlocal agreement, which we'll look at later, so we can talk about that. And then we reviewed the IEP specialist job. And it was a fairly short meeting. And I'll
I
let,
think it was our shortest.
yeah, I'll let Claire fill in my gaps.
Well, I was just gonna highlight, there are 9 staff people, teachers and paras with the interlocal this school year that are doing the, I'm gonna read it exactly so I get the words right. It's the alternative licensing candidates. So there are 3 who are doing the limited apprenticeship licensure when they're still in school and also working, and then registered teacher apprentice program, including our very own Mr. Vota's son Maddox, is working in Wellsville, and taking advantage of that program. I think it's amazing. It's a celebration for sure that our graduates and people who start as paras and want to continue as paras, but some who would like to be teachers or specialists, and they're doing, it's like a dual credit situation. I think it's a fantastic program that the state of Kansas has and that our interlocals and Eudora for sure is taking advantage of. And yay, Maddox. I was like, oh, look at this name, hooray. It's really great, and I think it's, yeah, teacher training, it's fantastic. Yeah, and we're gonna look at the interlocal agreement later, hurrah.
Is that it? Joe? Oh, that's right. I forgot. Eric, no update?
I directed to Eudora Times. It's probably
Sorry, Joe. Like, why didn't you go, Joe? All right, CCC, Heather.
No update. One coming, but not yet.
Man, you guys got easy jobs. All right, new business. HR strategic plan adoption.
Yeah. So we actually looked at this several months ago. We did not have it on July agenda, but would recommend the adoption of the strategic plan. I think it shows a real diligence to try and meet the needs of our staff and considered all employees, which we love about that. Is so we're both certified and classified, and I look forward to really starting and diving in on this as we get going. So.
Any other questions or discussion? Entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the HR strategic plan as presented.
Joe with the motion, Heather with the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Preliminary budget.
So yes, if you haven't already had a chance, but if you want to look and open up the Code 99, this, with your blessing tonight, will be published in our paper of record, which is the Lawrence Journal World. Currently, we're scheduled to, at least budgeted-wise, to have approximately 69.98 mils, which is a slight increase from 69.2. If you follow the Kansas legislature over the last couple years, we were used to be able to budget for prior year and then an average of your last 3 years. Now it is either what you consider to be prior year or what you estimate would be your next budget. So when we did that is we know that we've been in declining enrollment for several years, so the best number we're probably going to get is last year's number. That being said, that's what we budgeted on, maybe 1 or 2 students more. But to give you some of what that number was built on, for the class of 2025, which was last year, we had 138 graduating seniors. Currently, we're set to bring in 92 kindergartners right now. So that is a loss of 46 kids right there. If you ask every one of our secretaries and our building admin, we have a ton of new kids in our school. I don't know that we have 42 or 46 new kids in our schools. And so therein lies the problem is, even though we may be bringing in more kids, we have to make up for a loss of 46. That number pales in comparison to the class of 2024 that graduated with 165 approximately, and now we have a 94 first graders. That's a loss of 70 kids. So in the last 2 years, you're looking at a loss of 116 kids. That we have not brought in 116 new kids over the last 2 years. And so there is going to be, and we, as you know, our current reality is that our funding is based on student head count. And so this budget is maxed out the best it can. I do hope that we will have a somewhat increase in enrollment, but it is not going to be what it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And so just wanted the board to know that going forward is that we're getting the most we can out of our budget, but we're still trying to make up for the loss of students. And I know, as talking to the high school staff, we have more kids in Eudora High School than we've ever had. Period. I think we had 480 when I was here, when I first got here 5 years ago. We're pushing 5 something now, high fives, almost 600. The problem is all of our students are in those top 4 grades. And so right now in first grade, we've got 94, kindergarten, we've got 92. The other classes are hovering around 107 to our max biggest class there is 120. So in a current reality, in the next 4 years, you could see us move from a 1700 to 1600 school to very quickly a 1200 student school, and that has repercussions for funding as well as the staffing that's needed for 1200 students. So just wanted to make you aware of that's, again, those are some of the pinch points we have when we look at this. But again, I feel we're good where we're at with this budget, but we are going to have to consider cost savings throughout this year. And that's something we watch every day about what we're going to do, because it is going to impact us greatly. I do hope in September to have information about last year's budget as far as where we're looking, how we ended the year, and then what we hope to have and be able to do for the next year. So, but this budget hearing is set for our September meeting, and so it'll start at 6:10. You also, part of that hearing that starts at 6 o'clock instead of 6:10 is the revenue neutral. And you might have got that paper in the mail. Although it's very clear, it's also somewhat deceiving in the fact that revenue neutral means that the board would say we are only going to survive on the funds we had last year and no additional monies will be spent. Unfortunately, we've already agreed to raises. So we've already taken a large portion of that off. So that will be also considered that night as well as our revenue neutral. And you can kind of see that what would be revenue neutral compared to what the proposed revenue neutral or proposed levies are to the right of that. So
I'm curious, at what level would our 4A?
That's what we were just, I just asked.
The smallest 4A is about 320 kids. That would be 80 kids per class. in
Yeah.
high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the biggest 3A?
That's the
Smallest
smallest
3A.
Yeah.
Or sorry, 4A.
Oh,
That's the
okay,
smallest.
I was like,
must have said something.
We believe even at our highest we're going to remain 4A, but we'd be a long time till we would drop below. But we have been kind of in the middle point of 4A. We will now be one of the higher schools there. But again, we had some great move-ins come typically at our junior high school. We had a great out-of-district enrollment, but that doesn't solve some of the birth rate issues that we're dealing with that is very common across Kansas at this time. So
And housing is playing a role into this as well.
math from the back of the room there. We appreciate that. What AI is the question. So.
Ask it how to get more students.
How to
Build
pad
more
the
houses.
numbers.
So for your consideration, the Code 99 and R&R would be for publication, and we'll get that. We have to run that 2 weeks prior to the board meeting as a hearing date. So
Any other
I just
questions?
lost my language.
I've got it. I move that we approve the 2025-2026 preliminary budget as presented.
I'll second.
Joe and Claire, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay.
Do we actually need to set another meeting or? No, okay.
That was the hearing, so we'll do it at the same time as your meeting. That used to have a separate meeting, because it hadn't happened in August. Usually you didn't have anything prepared, but now we're able to do it in September.
Right, regulation and procedures.
Yeah, so we talked about this last month with research project procedures. Still feel really good about this, don't know what feedback you receive. Again, nothing's changed with this, but my recommendation would be that we proceed with this, because I think it helps both our staff, I think it helps our administrators, and I think it helps anybody who's asking, that there's some clarity around it, so.
Questions, discussion, motion?
I move we approve the Eudora Schools regulations and procedures for research projects and applications as presented.
Heather with the motion, Eric with the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Interlocal agreement.
Yes, so I apologize. Typically, you have a month ahead of time to look over something before you're asked to vote on it. We did not have this prepared in time for you for your July meeting. I don't want to say it's boilerplate because there are a few changes to this. The largest one for us would be that it puts into policy something that's kind of already been practiced, and that's the district technology. I credit Lee and her team for meeting with the IT directors, figuring out best practices. I think I talked about this or have in the past. I love the idea that we're going to have something in stone, that we don't have people showing up with random pieces of device and then our IT trying to scramble to put that together or put it onto our network. That may open up some issues there. So the other part that was added was the member district shall remit all local contribution. For the local contribution would be the added dollars that we got for special ed last year. This puts into place that so that a member district wouldn't say, yeah, we're not going to do that. Again, that means that we all just pay that extra part anyway. So I love that they've put the kind of a fine-tooth comb to this. So next steps, if this board is willing, is it would each board would vote on it, and then it would be adopted by the interlocal. So any clarity that I didn't cover on that?
I think another thing that it put into policy that we were already practicing is out-of-district placements. The language that used to exist was after a district reaches $10,000 of their own contribution, the rest of those costs would be shared by the 3 districts, and that's not what has been happening. So it just instead the interlocal takes over those costs, and so now the policy states that instead of the previous practice.
Yep.
Language instead of practice.
Yeah. And I really appreciate the interlocal taking the time to look over this, because I don't know necessarily the last time it was revised. Again, it has nothing to do with the funding structure as far as what we pay for students, but it's always good to re-look at these things time to time, and so I appreciate their work on it.
Questions?
All right,
Motion?
then I will approve the interlocal agreement as presented. I move that we approve the interlocal agreement as presented.
I'll second.
Claire and Joe, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. We'll take a 10-minute break.